And we're live.
Good evening. I'd like to open this meeting of the Planning Board for April 26, 2021, 7 p.m. via Zoom. Members in attendance tonight are Mike O'Connor.
Here.
Joe Pisano.
Yep.
Diane Rangel.
Here.
Alternate James Tarr.
Here.
And Counsel Robin Stein of KP Law. And Matthew Latanzi, Director of Planning.
Here.
Is Jeannie here tonight?
She is. She just texted me and said she's signing on right now.
And Jeannie Vidakevich, our clerk.
She just joined.
Could we read the disclaimer, please, Mr. Latanzi?
Absolutely. In response to Governor Baker's declaration of a public health emergency and the related emergency executive order dated March 12, 2020, the Everett Planning Board shall be meeting remotely until further notice. The audio conferencing application Zoom will be used for this purpose. An online link and telephone access number will be provided on all meeting agendas and also on the city's website. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the city's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. This application will permit the public to access and participate in future board meetings and hearings. Instructions for joining meetings in this manner will be provided on the city and city clerk's websites. We extend our thanks for your understanding and participation in this matter, which is intended to keep members of the board and the public safe.
Thank you. First order of business, please.
First order of business, Mr. Chair, is under old business. This is a site plan review for 2nd and Vine Street, which is a proposal to demolish the existing structures on the premises located at 12 and 24 Vine Street and 337-349 2nd Street, Everett, Mass, to construct a new 6-story building with 320 residential units, of which 16 units are proposed to be affordable, with approximately 4,000 square feet of ground floor retail space along with a parking garage. The premises is bounded by 2nd Street, Boston Street, Vine Street, and 3rd Street, and is designated by the Assessor's Department as parcels numbers K05-000067, K05-000068, and K05-000176, and is located in the Commercial Triangle Economic Development District. This matter is continued from October 13th, 2020.
Thank you. The proponents here?
We are. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Johanna Schneider. I am the attorney for the project. I'm here with John Block, the developer, and members of our project team. It's been a few months since we were last before the board. We've been using that time to work with the city and its traffic and civil engineering peer reviewers. I understand that they have materials to present this evening. We also have on hand our civil engineer from Bowler and our transportation consultant from Vanessa, who can respond to the peer review and answer any questions that the board may have about these matters.
Thank you. Anyone presenting?
Are we taking questions at this point, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, we are.
Okay, then I have your traffic impact study, and I was going over it.
Welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today we're going to talk about the new.
I fixed it. You can proceed.
Uh-huh.
You can proceed.
Thank you. We have a copy of traffic impact study, and I'm on page 6. Who's handling that? Steve, that yours? The impacts, the traffic?
That would be Sean.
That'd be
Sean.
mine, Mr. Pisano.
Oh,
Kelly
Sean.
would-
Okay.
would
Hi,
ask.
Sean. Good evening.
How are you doing tonight?
Good, good. Here's the question I have. On page, I said 6. It's got to do with the top sentence. While this generally true, the project does impact negatively this intersection, and they're talking about the intersection of 2nd and River Beach Parkway and Vine Street. What are you going to do anything, or have you talked to DOT about some kind of remedy for that? And I bring this subject up because if you're going to get a permit to build down there. What happens when the next project comes up? If you're within, let's say, inches of creating a bad intersection, well, that would mean that the next applicant would just make that intersection non-viable. Are you following me, Sean?
No,
I'm not-
understood.
I'm asking you, did you guys try to do anything? And I also am trying to put it into the record, so when the next applicant comes up, because there's gonna be a lot more up and down that street, then obviously, if Howard Stein and Hudson finds that right now with you going in, it's gonna negatively impact it to a point of what? What level? F? That's the
Right, well-
question.
Well, certainly, there are certainly some intersections that, independent of the project are at level of service F either today or will be in the future. We had pointed out the locations, and one of the comments that Howard Stein Hudson had issued was to identify those locations that were at or above capacity. And we've done that. One thing I would point out is that when we had initially done the study, we had got some information from DOT indicating that these lights were operating, individually in terms of their operations. They weren't in a coordinated system. Based on the comments that Howard Stein Hudson issued, we did a little more research. We looked at the Route 16 corridor study, where they had actually downloaded the operations from each cabinet, and they actually do operate in a coordinated manner. I know there are some commitments, TDM commitments, and offsite mitigation commitments with other projects, including 1690 Revere Beach, to look at the timing at some of the intersections along this corridor and make adjustments to refine it. I suspect this ultimately is going to become a larger effort, probably through the coordination with the city as part of the TDM ordinance plan, where the developers that are, putting together their TDM package will likely be looking to make further adjustments to refine that system so it operates at an optimized level. But certainly the comments understood, and there are other projects. I will say that our analysis does account for everything that's in the pipeline now. So even if these things aren't built, we are accounting for their volumes, but I do recognize that long term, there likely will be a need to look at a quarter timing study and really a plan to optimize the coordination based on the projected volumes for all these developments together.
Yeah, I would say to Matt Latanzi, Matt, that we, at some point, we should bring in Howard Stein and Hudson and sit them down with us and explain to us what level these are actually operating in English, because I don't really quite comprehend some of those traffic studies. So, especially since they're proposing that 248-foot building down there, whatever. Okay, thank you, Sean. The next one I have is, again, the impact study peer review, and it's page 8, and it has to do with the parking down there. And again, Howard Stein has made a comment about reducing the amount of parking that the applicant has asked for, and that we kind of agree with. And before this goes any further, I'd like to have that settled tonight about actually how many vehicles we're going to allow to park down there. And within some kind of reason, I know it's not really up to us. This goes in front of the Zoning Board of Appeal, correct, Matt?
Depending on if it requires a variance or not, yes.
Right, and it's gonna, because they're not putting in enough. What Howard Stein is proposing is well beyond, while a lot less than what's required. It's up to the applicant if they want to accept it or not, and I'd like to know what their thoughts are on that. What are they gonna propose tonight if we give you a site plan review?
Mr. Pisano, this is Carrie Pike from Howard Stein Hudson. If I could respond to that. So we've gone back and forth with the applicant on a couple rounds of review, and one of the items that has been a bit of a bone of contention, as you alluded to, is the amount of parking. MAPC did a study in Everett that showed that around 1.0 is about what's out there now in general in Everett, and I think they're at 1.3. Am I right on that, Sean?
I believe it was right around 1.3.
Yeah. And so we went back and forth. One of the things that we asked in one of the rounds of comments was that they designate some spaces for the commercial space, because they had not. And so they agreed to do that. And then what we've kind of come on, and this has come to, and this has been going back and forth with Jay Monty, your transportation planner as well, was that they would provide the parking that is currently shown, but that we're going to actually try to draft a condition to ask them to monitor it. So if there is actually less usage of the parking, maybe on an annual basis, they could potentially repurpose some of that space in another way, whether that's for bike parking or storage units for the tenants. There are different amenities, there are different ways you could repurpose that space. But we understand that was of concern from a leasing perspective for the applicant as well. So I think that's where my understanding was that we landed as a compromise.
Okay. And if they
John or any of the
repurpose
other development team, did I get any of that wrong, at least as far as my
No,
understanding of where we were?
no,
That's correct,
Yeah.
and that's our discussion with Jay Monty as well. And the other thing he thought we might want to repurpose it for down the road is third-party parking. So as future projects
Right.
come down the pike within the neighborhood, they could possibly get away with 1.0 or even less than 1.0 if we have excess capacity, and we're very open to that. So I think TBD on the language of the condition, but in terms of a monitoring and being flexible in the future, I think we do want and need that parking that we proposed today. May not be the case in 5 years.
That's fair. I would agree with that. But I would also put into the conditions that the applicant come back before the board, the planning board, if there's going to be any repurposing of parking. Would that make sense, Matt? Okay, so that should be part of the condition. We obviously don't have a problem with it. Matter of fact, it's an excellent idea. As far as visiting parking, I don't know how much visiting parking you've allocated down there, but again, if you were to reduce some of these parking spaces, you could give them up to visitors parking. I have two friends that are in apartment buildings, and fortunately I go to visit them. There are some ground level parking, but I can't imagine going into a building where there's no parking for visitors. So anyway, that's fine. That's fine with me. I don't have a problem. And other than that, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? I'd like to note that members George D'Angelo and Phil Mastrocola are online.
Mr. Chair, I do not see George D'Angelo. I do see Philip Mastrocola, though.
Well, I saw him. I don't know where he went.
Yeah, I saw him momentarily, but as of right now, I do not see him in our queue.
Well, like I say, I did see him, and that's why I wanted to make note that he was there. Wherever he went, I don't know. He did briefly show his face. Maybe that's the extent of what he was doing. All right. To continue, please. Any other questions?
The only question I have is, what is the actual address of this applicant? 112, it's a 12 and 24 Vine, 337, 349 Second Street. So if we make a motion, what address do we use? Or can we just say
Juliana
simply,
Schneider, can you help us with that?
I think it's the two addresses that were listed in the notice that was read at the outset of the hearing. So it is at this point, I mean, we might be using a different address for marketing and mailing purposes down the road, but I think that the full address is, as Mr. Latanzi read out at the beginning with the notice, is the property for which we're looking for, or the addresses for which we're looking for the
so we
permit.
just say Second and Vine if it's a motion, Matt?
I'm sorry, you broke up there on my end.
Yes, can we just say, refer to the applicant as being Second and Vine Street
Sure.
for the sake of simplicity? Okay.
And I would just note before the board does anything further, we do also have Steve Martorano from Bowler available to discuss the civil engineering peer review should the board have any questions about that aspect of the project.
And I'll add in there too that on our end, we have Zach Chorniak from Ty and Bond who handled the peer review on our end.
Mhm. Well, we're gonna hope that they took care of everything because that's starting to get a little complicated. So that's why we have these peer reviews. And I think they've agreed with everything and the applicant has answered all questions. So It's fine with me.
This is Zach from Ty and Bond. Can folks hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there any questions for the comments we came up with? Any discussion from the applicant on those?
No, you had asked for a cut through of the new proposed street. Is that correct? You'd like to see a sketch of it, of the Second Street cross section? Is that correct? But that was how it
Well, I
started.
guess that sounds like the last comment we had, some information regarding the Everett design guidelines, but looking through the documents that were on the Google Drive before this meeting, it looks like a lot of that stuff is there. We just hadn't seen
Right.
it yet, so
Okay,
I'm
fine.
good with that.
okay, good. Thank you.
Right, I think, so it's Steve Materano from Bowler. We've had some correspondence between Friday and today relative to the civil peer review. Had some clarification questions that we went over, and Zach, I believe you had subsequent conversations with at least Julius from the DPW. So there's a little coordination left to do on our end. There's a couple of capacity studies that we need to follow up with some information on. And Zach, I think you and I can connect offline with Julius and just make sure we've got the right pieces of studies relative to the sewer. I think we're good on drain. There was several what I would consider housekeeping items that we have, and we'll get back to Zach in response to his comments. And then we owe a couple of details on our water demand, which we think are fine, but we need to provide some backup data to show that. So a couple little details. I think we're close. But like I said, we'll work offline and report back to the board. But any questions that you had about anything in the study or about the project itself, I think we gave an overview previously about how it will be a fully compliant stormwater system, and we've elevated the site relative to, we know there's been some flooding on certain streets in the area, so I think we've got the elevation in the right place. And we've taken looks at water and sewer and drain, and we'll wrap those details up shortly. So happy to answer any questions the board may have, or if your peer review consultant may have.
Any questions? Any questions out there, Matt, from Zoom land?
None on the chat. Robin Stein does have her hand up.
Yes, Robin.
Rob, where it looks like we're probably moving maybe to a vote on this at the next meeting, I just did want to update the board that we've started a draft decision so that we can work through all the niceties of the conditions. And I just thought it'd be a good time to remind everyone that we have voting from the board on this project. Chairman Cafasso, Cheyenne, Michael, Leo, and Jim are the 5 members that have been at all of the meetings on this project. So just want to remind everyone where it looks like we may be moving towards a vote at the next meeting, that those are the folks that would be voting.
A vote at the next meeting?
Well, it's my understanding that there are still some items that need to be worked out and some final conditions that need to be written up and agreed to, but we have circulated a draft decision among staff and the applicant. I don't know.
I thought by now they would have had that pretty much squared away.
Well, again, like I said, we did prepare a draft decision, but given that there were conversations even today still happening regarding peer review and what have you, those couldn't have yet been finalized. And I think you heard Kerry say they're working on a condition with the applicant regarding the repurposing of spaces. So those final details will need to be worked out. But again, Matt is able to speak to it in more detail. That's my understanding.
Well, the repurposing of the spaces, they're going to come back to us anyway, no matter what happens. So if we give them an okay tonight and they repurpose, they still have to come back to us.
Well,
So that one I would just say goes by the boards. As far as the other ones are concerned, as Steve points out, they're working with these, and if that's okay with Matt, I'd like to get this thing over with. I mean, to come back again for another meeting just to say, yeah, we agree with the peer review people, And as Zach pointed out, he read it, he seems to find the majority of it okay, or if not all of it.
Well, again, all I can say is it's my understanding that the written decision is not in a final form where
Okay.
all the conditions that would need to be reviewed by the board, but it's up to the
No,
board.
that's fine. No, you're our legal eagle, so we're gonna abide by what, at least I would abide by what you're saying. Fine.
I'm just telling you what my understanding is. Matt may be able to jump in a little bit more on the details, but
Okay.
my understanding were things were still being exchanged, up until this afternoon. So
Okay.
Okay, then, we've heard from our legal perspective. The chair will entertain a motion.
Our next meeting is May 10th, Matt.
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay, so make a motion for continuance, the site plan review for Second and Vine until May 10th, 7 PM via Zoom.
can I ask you, I think this one has an IZ permit pending as well. So can
We
we
do, that's right, Robin.
also circulated a draft of that decision also? So just if we can be clear that you're continuing the application for the IZ special permit as well?
Okay, and then the motion will be amended to add in the IZ application also for continuance.
Second the motion.
So the motion is for the both, the one motion?
It is for both. It's a continue.
All
I'll
right,
make it again, just a clarification. Make a motion for favorable action for continuance for site plan review and inclusionary zoning for Second and Vine Street until May 10th, 7 PM via Zoom.
Second the motion.
a motion has been made and seconded to continue Second and Vine until May 10th, 2021 via Zoom at 7 PM. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Roll call vote, please.
Leo Pisano,
Yes.
Michael O'Connor,
Yes.
Cheyenne Rangle,
Yes.
James Tar,
Yes.
and Chairman Cafaso.
Yes, motion is continued.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next order, please.
Next order of
Chairman-
business, Mr. Chair, is item number 2 under old business. This is a site plan review and special permit for 319 Broadway, which is a proposal to raise an existing single-family dwelling with large detached garage and construct a 5-story residential building consisting of 20 one-bedroom units, 3 of which will be designated as affordable units. The area of the subject lot is 7,180 square feet and is designated as assessor's parcel number K0-000107. This matter is continued from March 8th, 2021.
Chairman,
Thank
if I, we do have Cheyenne, yourself, Leo, George, and Jim voting on this, and it does look like George joined, if you just want to introduce him for the public's sake.
George, oh, there he is. George is back again.
Thank you.
Thank you, George, for joining us this evening.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, the proponents here for 319 Broadway, is that the plan?
Mr. Delory,
You
you're
want
on.
to talk, Mr. Delory, you got to put your speaker on.
I apologize. Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
members of
you.
the board. Attorney Paul Delory, representing the applicant. I am joined by both applicants who are here on the screen. It says Alex and Gabe. And I am also joined tonight by Michael McEwen, who is the architect on the project, who can answer anything beyond sort of the basic summary that I'm giving. If we, just to recall, we were here last week and 2 weeks ago, and we are back tonight to deal with three matters that were raised by the board to those issues that are within the province of the planning board. And they are the open space configuration of the lot, the gate redesign for the front gate, and also there's been some additional brick added, which I know will make some members of this committee happy. But I wanted to run through those one by one if I can. And I'm going to ask Matt if he would share the screen with me. I'll give you the page numbers as I go through them. They're not exactly in order because some relate to different things. First of all, I'd like to talk about the open space. If I could ask you to put up slide 101, Matt, A1. So this is the configuration of the open space on the lot. That's great. Thank you. And if you'll notice that the way it exists right now, you see two planting areas in the front of the building, and then another small, thin planting area in the front, and then a long strip on the north side, north face of the building, which is all planting, and then again in the back in front of the two rear parking spaces. Now, those planting areas themselves achieve 19% open space. Without further addition, they're the 19% and they're compliant. On the south side of the building is another narrow area, and at least the hope of the developer is to put some kind of hardscaping or planting in there. But I'd like to ask the board's indulgence on this to have the option to do it. They've already got some open space, and what goes in on that south side is going to be dictated by construction conditions. So I defer to Mr. McEwen relative to any explanation regarding that. But if they can, they'll put some type of, certainly of hardscaping and landscaping, but it will really depend on what the circumstances are. In the draft decision that was circulated today, I've addressed that in such a manner to just have some type of flexibility. If I could then, Matt, go to 201, A201, please. Now in 201, 201, if you go back one, thank you. One of the issues that was raised by Leo was relative to the configuration of the gate. So what's done here, I'm going to show you several views of the gate. The gate has been changed. Number one, it's been recessed even further, and now the gate is a wrought iron style gate. It could be wrought iron, it might be black aluminum, it depends on the weight, but it will swing in from the middle, not out, but swing in from the middle. And if you notice also to the left side, as you look at that top slide, there's also been a small wrought iron gate, which will be a nice feature. You'll see it in some of the other slides on their building. Go to 202, Matt, the next slide. The next slide will just show you the rear version of that as that looks to the gate. So we try to address your concern or your comments, Leo, relative to that, and you'll see some different perspectives. If you could go to Matt 702, A702. And again, this will give you a little bit more of a look at that gate, particularly the lower left picture will show you. It's kind of a translucent gate where it doesn't go all the way to the top and you can look through and it emits light. And if you look at the top left slide, there's a small gate in front that goes down and kind of hides behind that house, which is close there, but it gives a nice little detail and it matches the same style as the gate that you would see. And just to go back, you can see again the planting beds in front. I mean, they're making use as much as they can of the open gate. And again, the gate has been recessed. I think all three of the views show that gate will show that it's well back, opens in, so there's no danger of it opening out onto the street. The third feature that the board had raised as an issue was relative to the brick face. And although we didn't settle on exactly what it is, I know this board's preference for brick. So the architecture team has gone back and has added brick again. So Matt, if I could ask you to go back to 201, A201. Now, if you look at the top slide here and you look at the building on that thicker brick column in the front, they've added almost another floor of brick. In fact, it extends almost to the top of the building. And so what it is it frames the narrow window, which is aluminum paneled with a thicker on one side and then the narrow part on the other. Also, the full brick is all around the garage is all brick. So realistically, any part of the building that isn't either aluminum or glass is a full brick facade, except up near the top. And it's set off and sort of framed by that darker fiberboard to give it I think a very nice look. The percentage brick on the front of the building on Broadway, the standards call for 20%. When we were here 2 weeks ago, they provided 40%. Now they're providing 46% of the facade as brick. Matt, if you go to 202 for me, I would appreciate the next slide. On this slide, you can if you look at the lower picture, you know how that brick now, the higher brick on the building wraps around the side and carries to the side, right, really, right into where that three-family is. So you'll see that extending up and above the top of the three-family. And then lastly, Matt, if you would go to 702 again. Thank you. And again, you look at that front rendering, you can see how that frames that corner nicely. So you've got a glass corner on the south west side and a brick corner on the northwest side rather, and it sort of offsets one another. And you've got quite a bit of brick now on the front of the building. And then lastly, Matt, if you slide, which is AR1, yes. And again, in terms of the color and the size, if you look at that perspective of the picture. So those were the three issues in the province of the planning board that we tried to address. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, or if there are any comments, I'd be happy to respond. As I have Ewan with me, so if there's any technical issues, he certainly.
Mr. Delory, I have the recent plans that were given to us over the weekend, and my plan still shows a translucent coiling door.
I'm sorry, did you
hear me?
No, I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry. I apologize. Now I can.
I said my plan that was given to us over the weekend shows a translucent coiling door. I don't have those steel decorative gates or whatever.
We don't have a detail on it, but Matt sent them out on PDFs today.
Today, yeah.
Oh, today. Well,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah, I know it. I agree with you. Matter of fact, I opened it up at 6:30 to try to go through it. So anyway, it does show on there.
So the plan that was given to us over the weekend isn't the white.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I can see it on the screen.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to follow it along with the same numbers and I don't find it. That's why,
Yeah.
Okay.
So if any comments I have, just to Mr. Delory, tell the applicant as well as yourself, thank you for agreeing to what the board was asking for as far as brick is concerned. Just going down some of the streets in Everett, some of the older buildings, and not even that older buildings, Ferry Street, down where Sam Spa used to be down there, Chelsea and Ferry, going up Ferry, the buildings on the right-hand side, all those apartment buildings, all full brick. Somewhere along the line, we lost a little bit of style here in this city as far as allowing these buildings to come in and not be fully bricked. But that's not for me to say. I don't know what happened, but they look so much better. And even today, 20, 30-year-old buildings look great, as if they were just put up. So thank you for adding more brick to it. The gate is perfect. You did recess it back, and you did make it as it should have been, split in the middle, opening up. Let's call it piston driven or electric, whatever. That way there, the tenant above that old coiling door you have wouldn't wake up every time someone comes home and that door goes up and down. And as far as the landscaping, we did mention the last meeting that we will I would say, leave it at the discretion of the applicant as to what he has to put there. And it would be great to let us know. That's all. When he's at that point, simply come back for a quick review as to say, this is what I have to put there, I'm going to put there, and I don't see it being a problem. So the three items you brought up, as far as I'm concerned, meet our requirement. The only comment I have, a negative comment, which really doesn't come from this board. I still think that building's 1 story too high, but again, that's up to ZBA, not this board. So I'm sure they'll apply their infinite wisdom and come up with a decision. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions of the applicant? Mr. there anything out there, Matt? That someone might be asking?
I do not see anybody in the chat. See nobody on the screen either. So
If I could just add a couple of things.
we do have one.
Hi, Steve Catino. And again, I think the project is beautiful. And, I'm not opposed to better construction. However, this size project in an already crowded area, a city block of 3 family homes with the elementary school, not enough parking raises concerns. And again, as Mr. Pisano said that he was looking for a 4-story building, reducing it by 1 level. And my feeling was the rebuttal was simply reducing 1 level would not work well for the developer. And I asked why someone would buy a small lot of land with a 1-unit home and assume that a 20-unit building with not enough parking would be suitable or approved in an already crowded area in a block of homes that is primarily 3-unit buildings. Built 100 years ago when parking was never a concern. In my opinion, this resolution of this matter was not addressed. It was addressed, but not fully answered. And then another concern I had was Attorney Delory did some parking observations of my tenants' cars and where they park. I have a 3-story building with 3 units, and I believe there are five cars. Based on Attorney Delory's observations, they park on the street or school parking lot. I have an 8-bedroom home, therefore 6.625 cars per unit. Observations confirm that the area currently does not have ample parking for current cars, not to mention a new 20-unit building that could have up to 12 cars based on the observations currently made. Again, when buildings were constructed 100 years ago, cars were not a commodity. Today it is different. Many tenants want cars. It will need to park somewhere. There are parking concerns everywhere in Everett and for every project. At one point during a day or week, the tenant will need to park on the street or their guest will, regardless of new construction rules for this project. I don't believe the parking was still fully answered where ample cars were going to park. Again, one resolution I heard was that anything under 20 units would not work well for the developer. So in closing, I therefore ask the committee to consider the unresolved questions when voting for this project. Again, the building is absolutely beautiful. I just feel as though, I'd like you to consider my concerns. Thank you.
Mr. Catino,
Yes, sir.
this board doesn't have jurisdiction over parking or the height of the building.
Right.
I would strongly urge you to go, as you are this evening, in front of the Zoning Board of Appeal to plead your case. And I agree with you in all aspects, but we don't have jurisdiction, the planning board. That's a Zoning Board of Appeal decision.
Okay, thank you.
If respond to that, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I want to stress, and I agree with Mr. Bill, is that's a ZBA matter. I've tried to address the 3 issues that are within the purview of the planning board tonight. And again, I need to stress that the height of the building compliant. There's no variance required for the height of the building.
Then how come it was before?
We're not hearing Attorney Delory.
Paul, we're not hearing you.
Frozen up.
That to be addressed in the future, but if the question becomes, was the zoning intended to lift the height of the building and comment on that? And in that regard, the developer has come in and presented a compliant building. But I mean, nothing that I suppose will resolve at the ZBA one way or the other.
Did you hear him, Mr. Catino?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Yeah, he's simply stating that the building height by code is 65 feet, which you can't have a 5-story building. It's kind of counterproductive, but the ZBA, I'm sure, will iron that out. So put your best effort into speaking to them, please. And I agree with you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions out there? Matt, anybody responding?
I'm seeing no one.
Well, then the chair will, what's the pleasure of the board?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, just before you get to a motion, I know there was a draft decision circulated and that the applicant did suggest some changes, and I thought perhaps we should discuss those. I don't know if Matt had a chance to circulate it, or if we maybe even just put the change. And there were a couple minor cleanup issues which we can take care of, but paragraph 4 in the findings, the applicant had suggested additional findings that the board may want to make. And it would be helpful, I think, if the board gave some direction on those.
Does that also include inclusionary zoning on this building?
They have not yet applied for the IZ permit, but they will need to.
That's correct. So would they be applying for it at the next meeting if we have a continuance? So we can
That's a-
wrap it all up at one night?
That's a question for them. I don't know what their timing is on that.
Okay.
Matt, that's the old one.
All right, hold on.
Okay,
This is the new one.
there you go. Leo, that's definitely a question for Attorney Delory, I think.
Okay.
It would be our goal to try and get that in place by the next meeting. I mean, obviously, it has to be done before there can be occupancy, and just a question of timing at this point, Leo.
So if we have a vote tonight, we're not voting on special permit. We're just making a motion for site plan review, not special permit, because it hasn't been presented to us yet.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
So I'd like to note, what I had circulated earlier to everybody was the draft that Robin had worked on with Jay and I. This, what's in front of you today, or what's in front of you right now, the blue edits, if you can see the blue or teal underlined stuff, that is proposed by Attorney Delory, or the applicant for 319 Broadway. As Robin was alluding to, they're very much, house cleaning matters, adding on and then the date. Really, number 4 of the findings of fact is the bulk of the edits. So if you'd like to just give that a read through and see if you agree with it, for the most part, everything else is the exact same.
And Mr. Latanzi, let me just say generally that I think what you'll read through is, all I wanted to do was to sort of flesh out the findings of fact that I believe, and it's my position, just like I was going to submit proposed findings of fact in a court, that during the course of the hearing, we submitted the evidence of that. It's up to the board to decide whether or not they accept that, but we had done it. And a lot of it was taken in one case, cut and pasted from my narrative in terms of access, and now with the 19% open space, et cetera. So what you're seeing in item 4 is just simply, just a little bit more complete statement of what I believe the factual evidence showed.
And Attorney Delory, just to be clear, when we list the application package and the materials, that includes the narrative, so we can update that just to make that clear.
Okay, sure. Yep, that's fine. Thank you.
Yep.
So as it is right now, Robin, would we be able to vote on this tonight? Should we wait till we get this?
No, I mean, if you have all the information that you need, I think you could vote. I'm not in a position to verify or not verify for you the additional findings that have been suggested by the applicant in paragraph 4. I mean, honestly, I think ultimately whether or not the project meets the open space requirement is really a building commissioner decision.
That's correct.
I understand what Attorney Delory is trying to say, and perhaps, a condition not necessarily that makes a finding on the adequacy of the amount of open space, but to your point earlier, Leo, just, we could add a condition that says that they will be, improving the open space. And, I wasn't sure from your comment earlier if you wanted the planning board to be approving it later, or if you just wanted the applicant to give you an update on what they were planning to do.
Yeah, no, that's correct, Robin. I just want them, just as if any applicant makes any changes to a project, they have to come back in front of the board. I would ask the applicant to do exactly that. When he's finally deciding what he wants to do, come back in front of the board with the understanding too that the board isn't just going to give him a blanket okay. We might want to review it and change something. And I want the applicant to agree to that.
And the applicant does, Leo.
Thank you. Okay.
The applicant
good.
does. And the only thing let me just say, the only thing that is sort of unsettled or up in the air a little bit is what we'll do with that southerly border. But when that's decided, we'll come back in front of the board and say, this is what's been decided and this is what's proposed.
Okay, I'm comfortable with that.
So perhaps instead of the last paragraph there that starts with the development will provide, maybe, and this is in the findings, maybe we put something in the conditions that prior to occupancy, the applicant will come back to the board to present its plan for improving the open space.
That's fine, except that it's possible, Robin, that southerly side may not be open space. In other words, their position is they achieve sufficient open space at 19% without anything over there. They hope to put some kind of hardscape or landscaping. So we just don't know at this point. I mean, unless, Jim, do you want to weigh in on that in terms of what's on that side? I don't know if Jim can hear me or he left. Is Jim McEwen there? No.
We understand, Mr. Delory, what you're referring to,
Yeah.
and we understand. And 19 has already been accomplished.
Yeah.
This would be added to.
It
So
would be. Yeah.
it would be an improvement if it could be done. Yes, we
But I-
appreciate that.
I think Leo's saying though, he wants to have a review later of what's going in the 19% as well, correct?
Correct.
Yeah,
So-
well, that's okay. That's
How-
fine. And the type of shrubs, is that what you're talking about? Like what the
Yes,
planting?
whether it's gonna be, you're gonna put rock in there, or you're gonna put grass in there. We just
I
wanna know what's
understand.
going in there.
That there's going to be definitely something there. I guess my only concern, Leo, is that the southerly side, we have enough open space without anything there. They
Right.
would like to put something there. They just don't know until they start to construct what they can do there. That's
I
all.
I agree with you. And almost at this point, we really don't even have a say over it. That's just up to the applicant. That's just your space. You conform to what's required of the 15+%. You've
Yeah.
given us that, and what happens on the other side is like a courtesy to come back and show us what you're doing. That's fine.
Right.
How about, I'm just typing a note here. Give me 1 second and I'll suggest a condition. We can see if it's acceptable to everyone.
Yeah, that's fine. And that's really the bulk of the change. A couple of small, I had suggested a couple of small grammatical changes there and there. That's all. In 7 and 8.
Mr. Chair and Board, this is Michael McEwen from Dennis Myers, the Architects. If I may, while Robin is typing here, can you
Yes.
hear me well?
Yes.
Sorry, I had a quick technical difficulty trying to unmute the microphone. Mr. Latanzi, if you can put up the A101 sheet, if you have the ability, I can describe our current design, and that may meet the board's satisfaction for how we've dealt with the open space at this point.
I do have it up. Can everyone see it?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Latanzi. So the applicant's desire is to soften the front of the building along Broadway, provide a warm access, pedestrians for people coming off the sidewalk, pedestrians, and also vehicular access. So that's why if you look, we have a variety of different plantings there at the front of the building and planting beds. And then as you process down the left side of the site, there's that's a nice 5-foot walkway, a hardscape there. So such that anyone entering or exiting their vehicle has a pathway to get to the vestibule and to get to the front of the building, etc. And also to take advantage of the rear of the site and the access that it has to the walking path behind the building. I know that Mr. Delory has mentioned the south side of the site, but at this point, it's really just an adjacent aisleway to the vehicular path of travel. The whole left side of the site is where your pedestrian access to and from the back of the site happens. So we just paid attention to deliberately the areas where you would have contact with the building walking. And, the whole south side of the site, we don't really feel is an issue because it will remain open. It's just that we don't know if it's going to be bushes or a drainable material. We just have to design how the parking lot works and functions, and the runoff for the building, is carried down through the building and then drained. So at this point, we feel like we've addressed the greenery and the open space and provided a nice design for the people accessing the building.
Thank you, Mr. McEwen.
You're very welcome.
At this time, Robin, you're still typing?
Oh, I can suggest a condition, perhaps instead of that last paragraph, if you want, Matt, if you want to put the decision back up, and then we can confirm it and you can let me know if this works. Perhaps we'll include a condition instead of that, again, that last blue paragraph that says that prior to occupancy, the applicant will return to the board for review and approval of a landscape plan for the project open space as shown on the architectural plan dated April 26, 2021. I believe that's the date of your new plan, correct? All right, we'll confirm that in a minute. And then we can say
that is correct, Robin. Yeah.
Okay, and then we can say the applicant shall only be required to improve the open space area along the southern side of the building if necessary to meet open space requirements. And then I was going to add, if the board wants this, that in the discretion of the board, that review may happen at a public meeting, but may not necessarily require a public hearing.
Okay. Does everybody understand the conditions?
So I can clean that up as we clean up the rest of the decision, but the condition would be along those lines. And we'll make that, instead of putting that in the findings, we'll drop that down into the prior to occupancy section.
Robin, can you read the last sentence again? I'm sorry, I was just trying to follow along with you.
I need to clean it, but basically what I was trying to say is the board can have the discretion to do the review of the landscape plan at a public meeting without needing a public hearing.
Yeah, I would really, I would just like to come back in front of the boord on this matter.
That's what I was trying to say.
All right, but before that, you had said something about the southerly side. I just want to make sure
yeah, let me read it. I'll read it again more slowly.
Yeah.
That the applicant shall only be required to improve the open space area along the southern side of the building. Or we can say, shall only be required to landscape the open space area along the southern side of the building if necessary to meet a minimum open space requirement.
Okay, so the southern side is what we're unsure of. I just wanted to be sure we're all talking about the same boundary. Okay, because as it stands now, if their calculation, which I believe is correct, is they wouldn't have to do anything there because they've already got 19% on the other side, but they would like to do something there. They just don't know if they can. So that's fine.
Does that, if that works for the board and for you folks, like I might clean up the grammar a little, but in essence, it'll have you coming back to present a landscape plan at a public meeting. It leaves that southern side flexible, only if it's needed for the board to get involved in what goes there. So I want to make sure that works for the board as well.
If it's needed to achieve 15% is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. Are you all right, Mike, with that? Can you follow that?
I did, and that sounds great, Robin and Paul. Yes.
Okay, good.
And we'll see. I don't know if the board has any questions or if that's acceptable generally to them. And then I would also ask the board just to review the rest of that paragraph 4. Matt, if you can just scroll the page down so they can see all of it and make sure they're comfortable with those comments. Like I said, I'm not in a position to verify them factually. But I would want the board to, it's their findings. So I would want them to confirm that, those are accurate and acceptable to them.
I have no problem. I read it. It's fine with me.
Any other questions? Anybody else? Hearing none, I believe the chair will entertain a motion.
Okay, well, we'll make a motion for favorable action for site plan review for 319 Broadway with the landscaping conditions And that's about it.
Can I just, it'll just be consistent with the draft decision presented to board, subject to our discussion tonight, and then Matt and I can work this out. Because you did have a full draft decision for consideration.
Okay, then we'll make a motion for favorable action, the site plan review for 319 Broadway, with landscaping conditions and with the full draft decision. Yeah, that's about it.
You have a second?
Second.
Second?
Who made the
Thank you,
second?
George.
Thank
Motion made and seconded for approval of site plan review for 319 Broadway with the landscaping amendment and the draft decision. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Roll call vote, please.
Leo Pisano,
Yes.
Michael O'Connor,
It's
I'm
Cheyenne,
sorry.
Chairman, Leo, George, and Jim.
So Leo Pisano is a yes.
Yes.
George D'Angelo,
No.
Phil Mastrocola.
Oh, it's,
I'm sorry, I
No.
just can't hear well.
sorry, it's Cheyenne, the chairman, Leo, George, and Jim. So you need Cheyenne, Jim, and the chairman.
All right, Cheyenne,
Yes.
James Tar,
Yes.
and Chairman Cafaso.
Yes.
So the only no was
George.
George, correct?
Yes, George D'Angelo.
All right.
Thank you. I believe the motion has passed.
The motion's passed, and I said Matt and I we'll get it cleaned up and filed.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Next
Mr.
order of
Chairman.
business, please.
Order of business, Mr. Chair, is item number 3 under old business. This is a site plan review for 48 Nickel Street, which is a proposal for redevelopment, including the demolition of an existing single-family house and the construction of a new 3-story, 9-unit residential building of a parcel of land located at 48 Nickel Street, that being a parcel of land referenced by Assessor's Department as M0-08-000178. This matter is continued from April 12th, 2021.
Is Juliana here?
Good evening.
I don't see her. I guess the applicant is not here.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Good evening, Mr. Antonelli.
So, I was here a couple weeks ago with 48 Nickel Street.
I thought it was this last time. That long.
I was here 2 weeks ago at 48 Nickel Street, a revised plan from the original 6-unit proposal that I had submitted about 8 to 12 weeks ago.
John, I don't.
I mentioned before, the building had stayed the same, the footprint was the same size, shape. The front door had changed. The parking layout was revised per some comments from the board and encroaching to the windows. And last meeting, I was requesting that I change the hardwood siding to regular cedar shingle siding, which I did make the change and submitted it to Matt the day after.
Then it goes back into the habits. Yeah.
Matt, if you could share the new plan.
Right.
Give me one moment.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, they think, yeah, they know it all. They know it all. He's doing the right things. I know. Where is he?
They're supposed to.
Yeah.
Mr. Antonelli, is there any specific page you'd want me to get to?
If you could scroll down to the next one, I believe it is. No, one more. There we go. That's it.
God needs to help us do this again, that's for sure.
I changed the lap siding to
Oh, I know.
shingle siding per the request of the board.
That, Mr. Natale, that siding that you're going to use, is it wood or is it plastic or is it hardy board?
So it's not going to be hardy board siding because I'm not really a fan of the hardy siding.
Right.
And make as shingles. It's not going to be
Okay, drive, Dawn.
cedar shingles. It's probably going to be vinyl cedar.
Right. And I would use the building down on Main Street, Dr. Covino's office that's going up right now, right opposite Pearl Street next to Dunkin' Donuts. You must know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Okay, and see the siding that they're using? It's like instead of being the 4-inch, it's like a 5-inch exposure with some texture to it. That's a nice product.
That's hardy there though.
Well, yeah, that's what we're not gonna do, but I'm talking about the size of the reveal, meaning a 5-inch exposure, not a 4.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean by exposure, but I think I'm almost governed by what they stock. I'm not sure. I know on hardy they sell 5, 6, 7, 8-inch exposures.
Yeah.
I'm not sure on the shingle
I'm
side.
not, we, the board, are not gonna recommend what for you to use, to say you have to use a certain product. We're just saying we would recommend something. That'd be up to you whether you choose to. Let's just use your building down on Tremont Street right now, which you have on there is a deadpan look. This building should have the shakes, I should say the siding should have some reveal to it. That's all we're looking for, okay? So
just for your knowledge, on Tremont Street, I have a 7-inch and 8-inch exposure.
yes, I know you do, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So what type of exposure are we getting here? 5-inch?
Whatever he wants.
Well,
I'm only
I don't
asking.
want, I don't want to say to him, put 7 or 8 or 4 or 5, and it looks stupid, and then he can say, well, the board said so. So I'm leaving it up to the applicant, to just don't use a plain faced hardy board. That's all. Make it look like something.
So again, Mr. Gaffardo
Textured product.
Yes.
And Leo, I'm governed basically by, factory products. They're not going to make a special exposure for me. I'm not sure.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not suggesting this. Matter of fact, you really should be submitting what you're going to use there in a hard form. Okay, you should actually be handing us some of it.
I will, if you'd like. I have no problem.
Yes, I do. Yes, I don't want any ifs, ands, or buts like the chairman's pointing out later on that, we said to do this and it looks like that. So it'd be great if we could see the product that you're going to use later on. And we'll make that part of the condition.
Sure.
Okay. And your mansard's going to be asphalt shingle?
Asphalt shingle.
Okay, very good.
Very attractive building. I want to comment on that.
Thank you.
I want to comment on that. Juliana must have her input in there. I can tell. It's got a woman's touch.
I have a question for you. Where are your vents? Are there going to be vents and stuff? Are they going to be on the side of the houses, or is that, for like your exhaust vents for anything?
Yes.
But I don't see any. I don't see anything on the plans.
Yeah, Mr. Mashko, the vents, the penetrations for the 3rd floor will be out through the roof.
Okay.
The bottom exhaust vents will be out the sidewalls.
On the sidewalls. Okay.
Yes, and the HVAC vents for the 1st floor will be out the sidewall for sure. 2nd floor may go through the roof or may go through the sidewall also.
Okay. And they're going to blend in with the structure, right? Everything. Okay.
Yes, they will blend in.
I got one other question. Now, where's your trash going to be located? I didn't see where.
Yeah, so there's
Gonna
a
be-
spot. There's a spot in the back.
And where in the back is it going to be like? I see green space, but is it like? I didn't know if that was grass or is that just going to be a spot for? I'm just wondering where you're going to be located.
So the trash is going to be. I don't know if you can see my mouse. There'll be right after the number 2 on the.
Oh, okay, right there.
Right there. Yes.
All right, I wasn't sure if that was green. I wasn't sure. Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comment? Anything out there in Zoom? Matt?
I once again do not see anything.
Robin, can we proceed?
But, you know, on the smaller projects, we don't usually prepare decisions in advance, so I would leave it to you to direct what conditions you would want to see in a decision. I know you just talked about looking at materials. Is that something you wanted to do before you voted?
No, he can show it to us after, as long as he agrees to what we all agree, what we want, basically. I mean, if he shows us, you're right, Robin, we shouldn't be doing it. He should present it to us first as the application request actually says, and then make our decision.
I leave it to you, but it's hard for me to envision how you would accomplish it later, that's all.
I know what you're saying. I know. Then we'll just have to have it submitted previous to approval.
Well, do you want to go one more meeting and take a look at it? I mean, I don't know Zoom wise, if the applicant can, leave a sample for folks to come in and see at City Hall, mechanics wise, how that would work. Mr. Antonelli might have a thought on that. I don't know.
I can bring it to City Hall. I can bring it to Mr. Pisano's house. I can bring it wherever you'd like, whatever.
If we drop it off in Matt's office, we can come by and take a look.
Yeah, I mean, if that works, and you want, you can, it's up to you. Continue at one more meeting. We could put a short decision together or what have you. I don't know conditions wise, just looking back through my notes from the last meeting, I don't know that we got that far in conversation as far as street parking or permits or any other conditions the board might want to have on this project. I have that it's likely to need variances at least for parking, side yard, and FAR. I don't know if the building commissioner's done a full review yet. I mean, that's just something we would mention in the decision. Obviously,
That's another thing we haven't seen either, the decisions from the departments. Have we gotten that, Matt?
Yep, I was told no comments.
Okay. I mean, that's from the police department and the fire and
Yep, I sent it
water,
out to
sewer and
all the
everybody.
department
Okay.
heads.
Well, I certainly don't want to hold up a project for the sake of what he's putting on the side, but I don't want to be fighting later on because sometimes the board and the applicant don't see eye to eye on what's going on in the building. So I would suggest that we go one more round till we have an actual look-see of the product. What do you think, Mr.
Frank with
Antonelli?
you, I'll go one more round. I'll go two.
Thank you.
I'll do whatever the board requests.
That'd be great.
But quite frankly, this is going on a third meeting.
You're lucky to get that far with us. You're doing good, so.
Okay, that's fine.
We can try to put a short decision together for the board to have something to look at the next meeting for approval purposes as well.
Robin, quite frankly, I'm almost fine with if you draft a decision post-meeting. I have faith in the board. I have faith in you. I'm not overly concerned with seeing a decision prior to. There aren't many conditions that.
Yeah, we don't usually do it that way for small projects. I was just extending the offer.
That's fine. I mean, if you want to, that's fine.
But like I said, it would be helpful if the board does have any particular other conditions like resident street parking permits or any of the other kind of conditions you normally put on small projects, just to let me know so that we can think about those.
No.
I would like to see the building notes on that as well, just because I was just a little concerned with only one exit for that building. Only one egress.
So again, my comment would be to that. I have no problem with that, but that would probably be the review or the purview of the zoning and or the building department. It wouldn't even be zoning. It would be more life safety, more the building department. So the building department would not be able to issue a building permit with only one means of egress. So we can talk about it, but I really don't understand or don't know what type of condition we could put on about building. That's why.
It doesn't have to be a condition. I just wanted to see the comments that they have prior to voting.
I mean,
You're talking about not the parking lot egress, but the actual building egress?
No, she's talking about how many means of egress out of the building is what she's talking about. And I think Cheyenne's asking there probably should be two. It's a question that should be asked to the building department, building inspector, and he should come back with the comment to us so we have that by the next meeting, so we know, and I agree with Cheyenne, or whether there should be one or two means of egress. So it's a question we were asking to the building inspector.
What I can do to make it one step easier for everybody, I have no problem with the building inspector comment. I actually welcome it. I will have my architect pull the spec section of the building code and I will forward it to Matt so that everybody has a hard copy of it.
We'd also like the comment from our building inspector, from ISD.
That's fine, but the building code
Yeah.
does.
I'm sure.
I would like to note, the building inspector, George Lane, is on this call.
Oh, he is.
Mr. Lane, would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Well, it's a sprinkled building and I think he's already researched this because it goes on travel paths, so many feet per exit.
Correct.
So he may be well compliant with one exit out of a sprinkled building. This is it's a travel path question, so you got to look and see how far you have to travel to get out of this building. It very well may be compliant with one egress. I have a hard time believing that Mr. Antonelli's architects didn't get together and read that section of the code and plan it accordingly. But we
Thank you,
will
Mr.
definitely pick it up and take a look at it.
Thank you, Mr. Lane.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion.
Make a motion for continuance for site plan review 48 Nickel Street to May 10th, 7 PM via Zoom.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded for continuance for 48 Nickel Street until our next regular meeting, which is May 10th, 7 PM via Zoom. Roll call vote.
Leo Pisano,
Yes.
Michael O'Connor,
You're muted. You're on mute. Mike, you're on mute.
I'm sorry.
Mike, a thumbs up or a thumbs down would suffice.
Yes.
There you go.
There you go.
Diane Rangel,
Yes.
George D'Angelo,
Yes.
and Chairman Kafasa.
I need that other person in that window there. Yes.
And prior to the next meeting, we'll have some samples to Matt's office. Would you like more than one? What would you like? I can do whatever you'd like.
Like the one you're going to select.
More than one petition of it or one piece?
Whatever we think you're going to put up, Mr. Anthony.
No, I'm just saying, one piece?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's in the city, in the submittals. You're supposed to submit.
Yeah, ain't no problem with it.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, and to avoid this in the future, I would recommend that someone in the city see to it that applicants start submitting these products before we get into these positions. It's part of the submittal process, colors and products that are going to be used. So
I disagree on the color perspective, to be frank with you.
it says it, but I understand what you're saying, Greg, but it's in the.
No, I'm just saying, not in my project, but as a whole, you really can't tell somebody what color they can paint their
We're
house.
not telling you what to use, we're telling you what not to use. If we don't like the color, and like I said before,
It's
the
not
next
in the
thing you know, we got a
jurisdiction.
yellow building and.
No, that's not in
we
the
didn't know it.
jurisdiction. That's not in the jurisdiction of any,
Take care of.
Yeah.
that's not in the jurisdiction of any board in the city to tell somebody what to. what to-
It is in the, damn, I gotta get up now. Okay.
Thank you. Any other orders of business tonight?
Thank you.
We
Good
have
evening.
one item under new business. This is an approval of an easement for 85 Boston Street. Per the approved site plan decision of 85 Boston Street dated February 23rd, 2021, specifically condition 19, subset B, subset IV 4. The applicant seeks board approval for their easement granted to the city for a bike share station. I will note that about 2 hours prior to the meeting, the applicant reached out and requested a continuance until the May 10th meeting for this. I did circulate the easement language. They just want to go over it with their counsel.
And the chair will entertain a motion for continuance for that too.
Can't hear you, Fred.
What? Are you going, can't hear me?
Yeah.
Little better
Haley.
than that. Yes, yeah, now we can.
Right.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Mr. Pisano, you were in the middle of that discussion with Mr. Antonelli. Did you find the paperwork that you were looking for?
Yes,
And
I
if so, can you
did.
share it with the board?
Absolutely. Part of the Everett Design Guideline.
And I just said this one's been continued and folks, I think, have dropped off, so perhaps we can talk about it at the next meeting.
Thank you.
It looks like Mr. Antonelli himself may have left, but I'm not sure, but where you already continued it.
This is strictly informational.
Right, and I would like that information.
Yeah, this is informational.
So it's not directed to Mr. Antonelli.
That's correct. It's not. It's
The general
Mr.
information.
D'Angelo asking a question. I think if you go to your Everett Design Guideline, and I don't want to sit here and go through the whole thing, but
No.
in here, George, it points out what we can ask for. I should say what we can ask for, what we're entitled to. And we're entitled to the applicant submitting colors and products that they're going to use on their building. So that's in here. And again, I'd have to go through it. And this is when they make out their application, they sign on to the Everett Design Guidelines. So they should know what to do. And such as Mr. Antonelli's, and I'm only using him as an example, at one of the meetings, he was saying that we do not have the right to ask about gutters. And in this very section, it specifically calls out gutters, because gutters become part of page 40 architectural details of this section. And I'm just gonna, it says right here, gutters. So believe me, I'm not the brightest bulb in the circuit, but I ain't the dullest either. And I do my homework. And when I say I want to know what your gutters are like, I'm asking a legitimate question. So this design guideline spells a lot of things out for us. And they're always talking about 20% brick on the building. That's a minimum. And again, it points it out here, a minimum of 20% brick. We certainly have the option of asking for more. They're not doing us a favor by giving us more brick. They're just conforming to what we're asking for. Now, I don't find that a favor. And again, I say, like I said before, somewhere along the line, a lot of things slipped in this city as far as allowing buildings to just be put up as cheap as possible, because that's what they look like, as cheap as possible. Because that gets the tax base, gets more buildings in, but you lose your character. And again, I use Ferry Street as an example. All those apartments down there, full brick, top to bottom. They look great. I've been down there 25, 30 years, and they still look great. And every architect that comes along the line who wants to buy a building, a used building, the first thing they look for is what? The old school buildings, the old brick buildings. Yet when they want to put up a building, they'll tell you how great Hardy board looks. Okay? I just have a big separation with architects on ideas like that. It's great when you want to buy it, you want to get a good old building, but you don't want to make 30 years from now, we don't have any good old buildings anymore. We just got Hardy board. So anyway, whatever.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pisano.
Thank you, Mr. D'Angelo.
Any other questions? Chair will, nothing else coming before the board this evening.
We didn't vote on that. You didn't, yeah, 85 Boston.
Continuance.
Oh, for the easement?
Discussing the
Yeah,
continuance.
continuance?
Yeah.
This will make a motion for continuance for approval of easement for 85 Boston Street until May 10th, 7 PM via Zoom.
Second the motion.
A motion has been made and seconded to continue the easement for 85 Boston Street until May 10th, 2021, 7 PM via Zoom. We all better wear diapers, but we'll be good. Do we have a roll call vote, please?
Leo Pisano,
Yes.
Michael O'Connor,
Yes.
Diane Rangel,
Yes.
George D'Angelo,
Yes.
and Chairman Cafaso.
Yes. Motion is carried. Having none, the chair will entertain a motion for
Motion for adjournment.
Adjournment. How's that? Yeah.
How's that? I'll make a motion for adjournment.
Second the
Is
motion.
that okay?
Second the
Seconded.
motion.
Motion made and seconded. Can we have a roll call vote for
Leo
adjournment?
Pisano,
Yes.
Michael O'Connor,
Yes.
Diane Rangel,
Yes.
George D'Angelo,
Yes.
and Chairman Cafaso.
Yes, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.